Hey there, Richard. How's it going?
Hiya. Oh, yeah, it's good. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. I've been badgering you for pretty much about 9 months now to come onto the Squash Pod, and desperate for you to tell everyone all about Squash Levels, because I think pretty much Squash Levels is kind of getting so much momentum now out there that people have been talking about it for a long time now. But I think there's a lot of people interested to know about Squash Levels in a lot more detail. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah, no, sure, no problem. I'll see if I can answer your questions.
We've obviously talked a bit off air about obviously what we want to, the kind of content we want to produce, and this first episode is really a sort of bite-sized introduction into, what is Squash Levels, what does it provide, why you produced it, who you are, who it's aimed at, and kind of how it works on a basic level, just so that people are a bit more familiar with it on a basic level, so that everyone knows exactly what it is. And we're gonna bring out a series of different episodes, kind of all delving into different topics, so that the listeners can kind of get a much more detailed, eventually a detailed understanding of exactly what Squash Levels is, so that we can all be pros on it. What do you reckon?
No, that's fine. The whole thing has become quite an obsession for me. It's really nice when I hear how well it's going down. I get lots of feedback from the enthusiasm and, frankly, addiction that goes on. I love it. I do a lot of stuff squash myself. I can talk about that in a minute, really. But I spent literally years pinned to the bar with people querying me over the algorithms and the nuances and that sort of stuff, because a lot of it is behavioural. And from those conversations, I've learned a lot as well, and tried to roll it all in. So yeah, it's become a lifetime thing for me. I'm just so pleased it's going down so well, and happy to bring a little bit of life to it. I suppose it isn't just a bit of software. There's a lot of kind of life packed into it.
The chance for you to step away from the computer and have a chat. Yeah, you say.
Well, a chat on the computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a big step.
Yeah. From one conversation on the computer to another. So before we dive into the good stuff, tell us a bit about yourself, Richard.
Right. Okay. Well, so I have a day job. A lot of people don't always realise that. They think I'm full-time on Squash Levels, but that's kind of my second job, really. During the day job, I work for Hewlett-Packard, HP, as a software architect. I've been there for a long time now, working in all aspects of software, really. So that's kind of my trade. Within HP, it's more architectural level stuff. So it's actually quite fun to I would say, come home. We all work from home at the moment, but to actually write software for kind of a hobby and obsession is just as interesting as it is to architect at the highest levels. So I actually have a pretty good mix of the various different levels. But there we go. For a day job, I am a software architect for HP.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic. So how much of a squash fan yourself are you?
I've always loved the sport. I've played it for forever, really. My dad played it. He was probably one of the earlier folks. He picked it up at an RAF base. He saw a couple of guys wander slowly towards a building. 45 minutes later, they came back looking like two rags. And he was fascinated. And he went and spoke to them and he said, "Oh, we play squash." And he found out about it and got into it. And then I suppose on the grounds I'm his son, I just naturally followed suit, played it from school. So from the age of sort of 14, 15, I've always enjoyed the game. I never had much in the way of coaching, never had much in the way of talent, in all honesty. And I have a sister now to tell me actually how bad I am. To almost to two decimal places. So it's kind of handy because I get a lot of email, and quite often people are moaning about their level, and I say, well, just take a look at mine then. And that usually quietens them down a bit. So yeah, no, I'm very keen on playing. I still play. I'm sort of late 50s now, but it's a good old game, isn't it? And it's really good for keeping fit. It's nice to have finally gone back on court actually the last couple of days. Although I'm
back, you're back, are you?
I'm back. I'm
in Cardiff, so we're still awaiting news from Mr. Drakeford.
Yeah.
Where are you? Where are you based?
Well, I cheated, so I'm in Bristol, but my son, who's considerably better than me, and I know that because I have a system that says so, he sort of joined our family bubble. And so we were able to get up to our local club and actually play. not sides or anything or drills. We actually went and had a knockabout. So I feel somewhat privileged. It's quite handy actually when a family member also plays. And so we did that. I've only played once, and I can barely walk now.
Yeah.
But it was so nice to be back on court.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I do play. I also pretty heavily involved in Avon. I'm part of the committee. I run the leagues, so I'm the league secretary. Do all that sort of stuff for Avon League. So I'm pretty heavily involved in the organisation of it. I'm very familiar with how players compete and week in week out that side of things. I'm part of it. And that also helps actually when you see it to that level. That's why I see players all the time. You can kind of dial it in.
So I guess obviously your passion is evident. So it kind of leads me on to, if you could explain kind of what exactly is Squash Levels. Like, if you were to describe it on a basic level, what is it, and why did you decide to develop it?
Right, two good questions. So I'll start with what. It's effectively a system that tells you how well you're playing at the moment, and it puts a number on it. And it's a mathematical number, so that if you're twice as good as the other guy, your number will be twice as big. And it's kind of almost as simple as that, really. It's fully inclusive. Anyone could be on it. It's all about your results. If you play someone who's twice as good as you, and you play as well as expected mathematically, then your level will remain, as it is, as half the other guy. But if you do better than expected, your level goes up. If you do worse than expected, it goes down. And there's a whole load of stuff wrapped around that to try and make it as accurate as possible. So really the whole thing is based around a kind of a ratio system where your number really represents how well you're playing at the moment. And I will make a point of the whole how well you're playing, because I get lots of emails that basically say I'm better than that, but it didn't allow for my dodgy knee. And it's not measuring how good you are, it's measuring how well you play. And it turns out they're quite different. People vary quite a bit, maybe 20% a week in, week out. They're kind of all over the place. So with all the damping and everything, it's just a pretty good measure of how well you're playing right now, really.
Yeah. Okay.
So sort of, go on.
Before we kind of talk about the algorithms and how it works and stuff, like if we could just stay on why did you want to do it? Like where in your journey, what made Richard Bickers decide I'm going to create an algorithm?
Yeah, well, I wasn't bored. I've never been bored. I was a player within the Avon Leagues many years ago now.
Yeah.
Well, let's put a date on it, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And we had a system on there that did some sort of ranking thing, but it didn't seem particularly accurate. And I was puzzling over it, and I kind of was left with this question that no one could answer. And we were all using English scoring at the time. If I was to win, say 9-5, what does that actually mean? I won, good. But what, am I twice as good? 10%? What's the number? No one can answer the question because English scoring is a bit complicated. And so I just sort of got interested. Now, I'm a software guy, and what I did was I simulated 10 million games of squash on a computer with varying different player levels, and I realized that there was a cunning algorithm behind it. And I started to draw some graphs and that, and then I worked with a guy at HP. Actually, he's a bit of a math boffin, and he came up with an actual equation. And what we realized is that there is a direct mapping between the score that you might get from English scoring and actually how good you are in relative terms. So I can tell you now that if you are twice as good as your other guy and you play English scoring, which of course most of us don't do that anymore, then you'll be winning 2.8, just to give you a number on it. And if you was to get as high as 9-6, you're virtually indistinguishable from each other. That's how odd English scoring is. With American scoring, a pointer rally, it is just basic maths. That's all very straightforward. But that's where I started, and I turned the whole thing into an algorithm, run it into a local league system, and all of a sudden we had this sort of mathematically accurate ranking system that was suddenly way better than the one we had before. And almost overnight we had sort of this like a handicap system, golf handicap kind of thing, and everyone became obsessed in it. Within a week or two, we were all talking about it, and that was when I first got pinned to the bar.
I guess that's kind of why I was so desperate to have a conversation with you or do this series, because the level of obsession that you see in clubs, and when you speak to other people about the impact that a game's had on their level, or whether it's positive or negative, is there to see. It's obviously, I think, something that is a potentially a massive driver for the popularity of the game. It's definitely something that's needed, because it's another layer of fascination, isn't it, for people, rather than just
yeah, I think so. A couple of things I think I've really pulled out of the feedback I've had. One is it really does seem to drive people back on court, even if they have a horrendous match. The first thing they want to do is, I've had enough of this. I'm going back. I'm going to find someone to play in a box game or something. I'm going to get my level back. And they have this real sort of motivation to get back on court and fix it, or just do better, or get to 1,000 or 2,000, whatever it is. So I see this huge energy coming out. I get feedback from clubs saying, more people playing now because they're trying to get the level up, which I think is fantastic. I'm really, really proud of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think I'm also really proud of is that the juniors love it. So particularly over in Kent, but there's other counties doing it as well. They run these junior series, and it's all done on squash levels. And they basically kind of play a box system, and everyone plays everyone else within the box on a Saturday. And there's like 100 kids or something all going bananas. And they're on there. They play it's a best of 3, and they have a knock, and they type the results straight into squash levels, and they get this immediate, up by 4%, down by 2%. There's tears or drama or whatever, but it's a total obsession. The kids love it, and they pour in every month to these clubs to play these things. And if I'm part of that, then I'm real proud.
Yeah, it's a tangible result at the grassroots as well, isn't it? Rather than just I'm better than that kid, or the coaches saying, he's better than that one, let's put him forward for, an elite camp or whatever. It's there for everyone, isn't it? It doesn't lie.
Yeah, it's that whole inclusiveness thing. That's my drive. I'm not too fussed about the elite players. They get all the glory. They're on there as well. And in fact, it's fascinating to see just how good these top guys are. But no, this is really for us, the rank and file, the juniors, the up and coming, the beginners. Anyone who can pick up a racket and have a competitive game will get a level. So they immediately find out how good they are, how well they're playing, and give them some goals and targets, and give them a chance to get back on court. And these guys who really are beginners, they're down in the sort of 50 territory, under 100. The algorithm is actually different for them, because one of the things I learned pretty quickly is that those guys get very good very quickly. So just by stepping on court, you're likely to go up. So there's a bias towards playing more at these lower levels, and the kids know all this, and they're just desperate to get back on court.
Yeah,
play more.
Get on court with better people. Yeah. So who's it aimed at, so let's look at it across the globe. Like, this is just a UK thing.
So there's a question about who does it work well for, and who's it aimed at.
Yeah, so
it's really everyone. It's completely inclusive. If you pick up a racket, then I'm interested. There's no reason at all why you shouldn't have results on the system. The practicality behind that, going international and multi-country, is really down to the way it works as much as anything. So we quite often compare with Strava. In fact, we really are trying to become the Strava for squash. I can maybe another episode we can talk about what we're doing there. But the thing about Strava is you go for a run and it records it and it's job done. With Squash Levels, it's all about, you have to have the results in, and it's really targeting at the more official results. It might be like a box game or something. It might be a league match or tournaments. But the thing about those matches is they're all organised by somebody else. There's another system there. And we collaborate with all these other systems. We do not compete. That's something I'm really, really, really strong on. Don't compete with anyone. This is a system that works with all other systems, and it's collaborative and complementary. And what we do is we get the results in from those other systems, and from there we generate the levels. So there's a practical limitation to this, is that you have to be connected. So if you play for a league somewhere and some system that's not connected, then your results aren't going to be on there. Now that's something we can work on. If someone gets in touch with me, I'm more than happy to work with a web developer and get connected. It's pretty simple. Only takes a day or so. It's just a very simple API, and it's all good. So what's happened over time as the things become more and more popular is that I've been working with more and more developers who've got their own systems. Some of them pretty huge, and some are pretty small. I don't mind. The whole thing is it's everyone's invited. bit by bit. We've pretty much covered a lot of the UK. There's a lot of bespoke systems in the UK, a few big ones.
So
And that,
do different countries, Richard, need to, sorry to interrupt, do different countries
yeah,
need to go on different websites, or are they all on the one website? So Wales, England, Ireland, Scotland for now?
yeah, so there is one website. Most importantly, is one database.
Yeah.
And there are different websites, but they just take different slices of the same data. So we have one, we're partnered up with England Squash. And if you go into es.squashlevels.com, you'll find it looks awfully similar. It actually used to look like the English Squash one, but we agreed that it was too confusing. And I'd get queries about English Squash membership and that sort of stuff because it looked too similar. So we've got our own branding now. Anyone who's seen it will have noticed something of a transformation in the last 12 months, which could be another topic, frankly. But there are different slices. So there is Wales.squashlevels, there's ES.squashlevels, there's Sweden.squash. There's a few of them, but they're basically taking a different cut of the same data, and they kind of behave differently. So if the system knows you're an English squash member, it'll serve up English counties and that sort of stuff. So it is tuned to you. And as we start to spread around, it's relatively straightforward to kind of put the system into a mode that works well for that group of players. So that's kind of the gist. It's the same system, but just operating in different modes, but on the same data.
At the moment, what other types of systems are out there in the world, Richard? So, like
Well,
in America, they've got the rating system, haven't they?
oh, right. Oh, in terms of rating systems, yeah, there's a few around. A lot of them do something that I typically call the matrix system. That's the closest to what there is with squash levels, and that's another one, sort of up a bit, down a bit sort of thing. They're okay. I'm not going to criticize them. I think where the difference lies is that they typically don't use the point score, so you're really stuck with sort of just games, and that's okay. But obviously, a 3-0 is not the same as another 3-0. And you just don't get that level of accuracy. So with the squash levels, within a couple of matches, really, you can get a pretty good estimate of your playing level. So that's kind of one thing. But the other thing is, because they're not really mathematical, what you end up with, seeing some of these rating systems, and you can be like a 4.24 or something, or a 3.18. It's not particularly high resolution. It doesn't really mean too much either. So if you're playing someone who's you're 3.18 and you're playing someone who's a 3.21, it doesn't really mean much. It means that he or she's likely to be better than you, and you'll probably have a good game. But that's as far as it goes. And what I found was that once you apply a bit of maths to this thing, and that these numbers really mean something in terms of ratios, you can do all sorts of stuff with it. And that's kind of really where a lot of the fascination has come from for squash levels, because you can start to predict outcomes down to the points level. You can do seedings. You can compare players. It's great fun. You can look at a couple of guys who are about to go on court and just predict their result, and it's usually not that far off.
I would say that's probably the most used feature. I know there's different features within squash levels that we can talk about on other episodes and stuff, but obviously at the moment, like if someone's going to play someone in a game, you literally can just Google squash levels squash levels expected result? I think it is. Is it expected result? Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, on the old site, there was a link for that. What you do now is you look at your profile. You could look at one player and then just ask to compare with another one.
You just compare, and then then that if you're playing Johnny Biggs or whatever, and he's got double the rating that you have, he's technically twice as good as you, so you need to get so many points for your rating to go up. So it's a real motivation going on court against someone who knows better than you.
And you get a chance to get something out of it as well. Something we've done, I know I'm whittering on here, but this is huge fun, is that you can run a kind of parallel competition to kind of the real one. So we have a squash levels tournament dashboard, if you like. So the main event is going on and all the usual suspects win it. It's a bit dull, really. But we do a most improved event running in parallel, and anyone can win that. And you have this sort of this leaderboard that's going on all the way through. It's live, and results go in, and people move up and down, and anyone can win that one. And quite often, the great thing about the guys who aren't that good, they're the ones who usually win it because they improve the most. So it's great fun.
I guess the key to the whole thing is, more people need to use it more often over a long period of time, and for everyone to, number one, enjoy it, but also to get because the more games you play, you're the more likely to find your true level. You know, one game against someone may show how you didn't play that well. You know, your level against that player at that time. But like you say, a lot of people's criticism, if there is one, is that, you know, it doesn't necessarily show how good you are, but it shows how good you are against that player, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it shows how well you've played, and it
Yeah,
rewards you for playing better. You don't have to win; you just have to play better.
yeah,
I would say that the real sort of drive for me is it encourages people to get back on court and play more and play better. It's like a golf handicap. That's probably the best thing to compare it with. Everyone knows about that. People get well obsessed about golf handicaps, and you know we're peddling the same addiction, really.
yeah. We've gone over what we agreed as our limit. So what we'll call it. We'll call an end to the first one, and then we'll decide what our next episode's going to be, and we'll get a chance to chat with you lovely people again very soon. Thanks, Richard, for the first one. It's been brilliant.
All right, yeah, thank you. No, as you can tell, I do quite like talking about it.
Oh, it's all right, mate. Only 6 minutes over.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, stopping me is the hard part.
Yeah. Oh, well, I did it. That's fine. Yeah, great stuff. Have a good evening.
All right,
Thanks.
yeah, cheers. Thanks, Web.
See you soon. Cheers. Bye.